Christ is risen. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Well, welcome to our Resurrection Sunday. Today our text is from John 20, 1 through to 18. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed. She ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They've taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they've laid him." Then Peter and the other disciple set out and went toward the tomb. The two were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent down to look in and saw the linen wrappings lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb. He saw the linen wrappings lying there, and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. Then the other disciple, who reached the tomb first, also went in, and he saw and believed. For as yet they did not understand the scripture that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples returned to their homes. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white, sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and the other at the foot. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They've taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they've laid him." When she had heard this, she turned round and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" She, supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you've laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them that he had said these things to her. I want us to notice that this passage is bookended by one person. A woman with a past, with a history. Yet this woman, Mary Magdalene, is the first witness to the resurrection. And as we reflect on it, we notice how male-centric her world is. Mary wasn't there for the Last Supper, at least not that I know of, including all that went with it. She wasn't there for the washing of the disciples' feet and all that follows as we find it in John chapters 13 to 17, including the long discourse on the I Ams and his great high priestly prayer. She wasn't there in Gethsemane in Jesus' agony, nor when he was arrested. Mary wasn't part of that male inner circle. As with the rest of the women, she was peripheral, tagging along, providing cash resources to keep the whole operation running. Yet here she is, Mary with a history, with a past. Both Mark and Luke's Gospel record that Jesus had cast 7 demons out of Mary, perhaps indicating a somewhat tortured existence before she met Jesus. Yet here she is, a woman, the first witness to the resurrection. not one of the 12, not one of the 3, not part of his own family, Mary Magdalene. But why Mary? I want to suggest it's because she loved much. We don't know if the description of the sinful woman that we find in Luke 7 refers to Mary. Yet there is a resonance in what Jesus says about her and in how Mary Magdalene behaves toward Jesus. In verse 47 of chapter 7 we read these words. Jesus says, "Her many sins have been forgiven, for she loved much. But the one who has been forgiven little loves little." Mary had a great love for Jesus. She had a profound sense of indebtedness to him. So here she is. So let's notice in the resurrection text the rings of authenticity. Mary has come to the tomb early in the morning. She reports that the stone has been rolled away. We're not told, but it's implied that she'd had a quick look and saw that Jesus wasn't there. To her, he was missing. Resurrection has not occurred to her. She just wants to be with him, to look after his body, to make sure that it is treated with dignity and respect. Now, Peter and the other disciple, I want to suggest that John may well be referring to himself, run and check out the tomb. And they then return home. Home probably meaning the upper room. But Mary hangs around. After all, this is the last place that she knew where Jesus was. And she checks again. And is there a ring of truth about this? How many times have you lost something and keep checking in the same place where you know you've looked numerous times and hoping suddenly, somehow, that it will have reappeared? And this is what she does. She keeps doing this. She's looking in the same place again and again. Yet we read in verse 12, something changes. And she saw 2 angels in white, sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and the other at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they've laid him." Her grief, her distress over the missing body is so great that she doesn't register who these 2 are or what is going on. I suspect it's only in retrospect that later on, as she is reflecting on it, she thought, "Oh, I missed that." And yet, at this moment, she just knows that Jesus' body is missing. And she wants it back. So we read on. When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there. But she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you've laid him, and I will take him away." Mary just wants him back. That he might be alive is not on her radar at all. She doesn't recognize Jesus because she doesn't expect him to be standing in front of her. It's only when he then says her name, Mary, that she suddenly wakes up. I'm reminded of a quotation attributed to 4-year-old Billy, who says, "When someone loves you, you know the way they say your name is different. You just know that your name is safe in their mouth." She knows that voice. She knows the way of saying her name, and that her name is safe in the mouth of Jesus. Mary is now confronted with a new reality. And it's totally out of left field. As I said, it wasn't on her radar at all. She had no expectation, no hope of a risen Christ. Yet, here they are. This one, who knew she was loved greatly, in turn loved greatly. We have noted that in this very male-dominated society, God chooses this woman, one who, as I said, was not one of the 12, one whose word could be doubted or ignored simply because she wasn't a man, one who might have had a checkered history and could be doubted for that. Yet God chooses this woman, honouring her as the first witness to the resurrection, the first witness to an event that would ultimately change the world forever. And in choosing Mary for such a privileged role, we're invited to consider how God sees privilege and who is worthy, to recognise that potentially there is no one beyond the love, favour or choosing of God. And for Mary, I want to suggest that Mary cares about none of this. Against all expectation, against any hope, she had accepted the reality that Jesus was dead, and she just remained overwhelmed with grief. Yet now she's filled with joy. It's surely too good to be true, but it is true. Mary will never be the same again. Neither will any who have encountered the risen Christ. Each can now face the future with confidence and hope. Whatever happens, we are not alone. Christ is with us. The future is in his hands. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed.